Hey guys, welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles! Resolve. In the last episode, we proved Judge Jigoku guilty. And now he is somewhere else, most likely detained. But we do have a new witness in the stand, which is Barak von Zeeks. And now we're trying to establish whether or not he has ties to the Reaper. And in the last episode, we already had a little bit, we already heard his statements, his testimony. And in this episode, we are going to start the Reaper and the Assassin exchange testimony. And we're gonna scrutinize everything. As always, of course. So let's get started.
I've never taken the life of another, nor have I instructed another to kill.
Hold it! So you're not what the general public refer to as the infamous Reaper of the Bailey.
Exactly.
Don't imagine for a moment that the court will be satisfied with a one-word answer on this.
I realize that.
If you're intending to comment on every sentence, this could take a while, Kazuma. Didn't you find it disturbing, though, that one by one, defendants who'd been acquitted after your unsuccessful prosecution were killed?
Let me answer that question by posing another. If one by one, defendants who'd been acquitted after your successful defense were killed, would you find that disturbing?
Disturbing? I couldn't possibly say how that would make me feel with a one-word answer like that.
Exactly.
Well, that told me.
But even though I'm not the Reaper, that doesn't mean I ignored all the hearsay.
Well done, Barak. Well done. You are a king, man. You are of highborn. You are a highborn for sure. Okay, let's keep going.
I've been investigating the truth behind the Reaper for years, and I was aware of Gregson's involvement.
Hold it! You say for years. How long exactly?
Since the very first time the Reaper's influence was felt in this courtroom, 10 years ago now.
And your investigations led you somehow to Inspector Gregson, you're saying?
I didn't want to believe it. He was a personal acquaintance. We'd worked on cases together in the past.
A friend, even?
I felt like a betrayal. It felt like a betrayal, but I demanded permission to search his office at the yard without his knowledge.
Which is when you found a secret notebook, is it?
It's when I first learned of the location he'd noted only as grouse, and the appointment at 5 p.m. on the 31st, though I didn't know the significance of those details at the time.
So now we're at the nub of the matter.
As it turns out, the significance for me personally was very unfortunate. That's the reason why I went to Fresno Street that day, and how I came to discover the body.
Hold it! But why did you go to that specific location?
I thought that if it was the Reaper's headquarters, then by turning up there at 5 o'clock, I would catch whoever was involved red-handed. Sadly, all that was awaiting me was the inspector's call.
Yes, even though it wasn't designed for you, you walked straight into the trap set by Jigoku.
Exactly. Jigoku had intended to implicate Hugh Boo, but unhappily for me, I arrived at the scene first.
Ha! A ridiculously careless blunder. Moved on to just throwing insults around, I see then, Kazuma?
Think what you will. It doesn't change the truth. The point is, no common thread exists between myself, Gregson, and Dr. Wilson.
Hold it! There is a link between you and Gregson, though.
Of course, we were close acquaintances. We'd worked on numerous cases together. I considered the man to be a mentor of sorts. He taught me a number of important lessons.
He did? Such as what?
Where to buy good fish and chips and such like.
Well, that was convincing.
Dr. Wilson was a corona, of course, but that was some time in the past. And in any case, I understand it was several years ago now that he is invited to work at a Japanese university.
That's right, he was a visiting professor at the Imperial Yume University in Tokyo.
It should be unambiguously clear then that no link exists between myself and him. In other words, I had no motive for sending some assassin across the oceans to kill the man.
It sounds plausible enough, and I want to believe it. But something about this just doesn't quite sit right with me. So this is the statement we're supposed to present something with. Okay.
Clearly, therefore, there's no reason to suspect me of being behind the assassin exchange.
Hold it! Certainly, as it stands, there's no evidence to suggest that you concocted the scheme.
Objection!
But as it stands, we have only the accused's insistence of his innocence. Sorry? Perhaps there is some reason that would explain it. Why he masterminded the assassin exchange. And if a reason could be established later in these proceedings, then the accused's claim in his testimony that he wasn't involved would amount to perjury. Well, yes, that's true, but clearly Kazuma-sama intends to identify a reason and use it to make his case. So if we don't identify something first, he'll gain the advantage. This could be dangerous. A convincing testimony. Oh, sorry guys, I had to sneeze. And I didn't mute the mic, sorry. Okay. A convincing testimony by Lord von Zieks. Certainly, with no apparent connection between the three men, there's no way to establish a motive. The testimony seems sorry guys, I had to sneeze again. Okay, but now I'm back. Seems unassailable as far as I can see. Oh dear me, what a bleak expression. I agree, there doesn't appear to be any particular link between them at first glance. But with the inclusion of one I don't know what's going on, okay, but I almost had to sneeze again, but now I'm okay, I promise. But with the inclusion of one other person, it must be overthinking it, surely. Another person, Mr. Naruhodo? I need to think back over all the information. Okay, I hated when this happened. But now I'm back, I think. Okay, I need to think back over all the information we've gleaned so far. Alright, and I'll review my notes about the case and all the evidence in the court record. Could it be that Lord von Zieks has something to hide after all? Alright, so we pretty much already know that it's this statement, right? The point is no common thread exists between myself, Gregson, and Dr. Wilson. So the question is, do we have something that establishes a link? It can't be this article, photographic print received from Mr. Widgel in order to aid with locating her missing husband. I don't think that this, no, this neither. Neither this one. I don't think the red hairpiece does anything for us. Nor does the candelabrum. The figurine? No. The framed photograph. The revolver? All of them had revolvers, right? But this is a particular one. No, there is... This person is Lord Clint von Zieks. No. The autopsy report. Cause of death? Additional observations. No, I don't think so. The crime scene floor plan. Nope. The notice board, a freestanding notice board completely covered in notes and articles relating to victims of the Reaper. There is a bloody handprint on the back side. That doesn't do anything for us though. Although, there are details, blah blah blah. The paper is brown with age. Appears to be a newspaper clipping here. Oh, okay. You do remember? Well, blah blah blah. Okay, so that's okay. What about the Venus firecracker? No. Photograph of the victim. The pocket watch? No, I don't think so. The identification. The photograph. The Asuke. I, Genshin Asuke, hereby request that upon my death, any and all material possessions and wealth belonging to me in London be delivered to my son Kazuma Asuke in the Empire of Japan. It is with deep sadness that I accept my fate in this foreign land and the knowledge that I will never see my homeland or family again, but I regret nothing about my chosen path. Report from the autopsy of the professor's final victim. It's signed by Dr. John H. Wilson, who carried out the procedure, though Professor Mikotoba actually penned the report. Recent scald ink stains will blah blah blah, but no document was found. Autopsy findings, vital evidence recovered from the victim's stomach. Credit to Inspector Gregson for petitioning so doggedly for the autopsy report, autopsy procedure. So Dr. Wilson penned this, and Gregson knew something about Clint Van Zieks, and Clint Van Zieks is Barack Van Zieks' older brother. So we do actually have something here. It can't be this, can't be this. The telegram from Japan. No, there is just these two. And we don't have any link to... So it must be this, right? Okay, I'm just gonna present that. Okay, it seems to be... Oh, it seems to be correct. Okay. What is this? An autopsy report? Wait, this is 10 years old. From the autopsy of Lord Clint Van Zieks.
What? My brother's autopsy report?
I'm pleased to see the defense doesn't intend to run from undeniable truth.
Order in court. What reason do you have for presenting a 10-year-old autopsy report here, counsel?
The autopsy report of the professor's final victim, is an indelible, I guess. It's an indelible link between Inspector Gregson, Dr. Wilson, and the defendant.
Not that accursed name again. The professor.
I've personally researched all of the court records relating to that case. I know that at the time, autopsy was considered sacrilege to the victim's souls. And for a member of the aristocracy like Lord von Clint von Zieks, it was unthinkable. But someone implored the powers to allow the autopsy to go ahead. Inspector Gregson. He declared that he was certain he would obtain conclusive proof from the procedure. And it was Dr. Wilson who conducted the autopsy. His signature is clearly visible on the document.
As promised by Gregson, the autopsy did indeed produce evidence. Evidence that conclusively proved Genshin Asuke was guilty of the murders. In my brother's dying moments, he mustered all his remaining strength to leave that vital clue behind.
Indeed, that was the key to indicting the professor for his crimes and the conclusive evidence that convicted him. It enabled Lord Van Zieks here to avenge his brother's senseless death with a marvelous victory in court.
A marvelous victory, was it? I wonder if that's really true.
What?
Could the same be said if it turned out that the key piece of evidence in question was in fact fabricated? If the inspector, the coroner, and the prosecutor all colluded together to cast an innocent Japanese man as a mass murderer and send him to his death.
That's outrageous.
And now, 10 years later, for some reason the secret has been threatened and needs protecting. Which is why the inspector and the coroner had to be silenced, isn't it? By someone in power in Japan and Britain, using the two killers recruited for the assassin exchange.
Order at once!
10 years ago, my father was convicted in this very courtroom as a mass murderer to be sentenced to death. But it was all a sham, and I swore to myself that I'd prove it, which is why I had to come to Britain, whatever the cost.
You'll have to forgive me if I feel compelled to toast this vengeful Nipponese's tenacity of purpose here. However, he who fails to quash his emotions in the courtroom has failed as a lawyer.
Come on, Kazuma, you know this won't wash. You're claiming your father was misrepresented in a trial that took place a whole decade ago. You must see that without evidence, that's nothing more than a wild accusation. As it happens, I have evidence. What? As the court has heard, I crossed the channel to France with Gregson on the 31st. I went with him on the pretext of being the assassin recruited to kill Seishiro Jigoku. But my true intentions were to make the inspector tell me the truth.
What's truth?
The truth about the evidence, and he acknowledged what I'd already deduced. There's a closely guarded secret about what went on in that autopsy 10 years ago.
What? A secret? I know nothing of any secret.
While he waited for my supposed mark in Jigoku's cabin, I drew my clan's illustrious sword, Karuma, before the inspector's eyes. He very quickly understood what my true motive was.
Right, I see. You're that Asugi's young lad, are you? And what? You're gonna cut me down with that thing, is that it?
That will very much depend on the answers you give to my questions. I want to know what really happened 10 years ago. The truth, that's all.
Before we get into it, let me make one thing clear. I still believe your father was a professor. There's no doubt in my mind. But unfortunately back then, we didn't have the evidence we needed to make the crime stick.
So, you admitted then? The evidence used in my father's trial was fabricated?
It was for the good of the country. Anyway, I was just following orders.
Orders? What exactly did you do? Speak!
I'm not saying any other word.
Even if your life depends on it?
That's right. Even then.
So that's when the tip of the sword broke. Oh, Kazuma-sama! If the results of Glenn von Zieg's autopsy were fabricated, then the investigating officer Gregson and the lead coroner Wilson must have known about it. And they can only have been ordered to pervert the course of justice in that way by one man. The man leading the case for the prosecution, Barak von Zieg's.
In other words, the defendant did have a cause to organize this exchange of assassins.
Exactly, and as was established earlier, it has to have been the Reaper himself who liaised, I guess, because of liaison? Who liaised with Jigoku in Japan to arrange the exchange. Ah! So it follows that the Reaper's true identity can only be that of the man who stands accused in this courtroom today, Baruch von Zieks.
Objection!
Kazuma Asaki,
What?
what you've just told the court, are you absolutely certain of your facts? Did Gregson really fabricate evidence for that trial 10 years ago?
I heard it with my own ears. His shameful admission.
In that case, I know the name of the Reaper.
What? Lord von Zieks?
I gave no such orders. I know that for certain. Which narrows down the remaining possibilities to one.
If Lord von Zieks isn't the one behind all this, then yes, there is only one other person who could have done something like that. I believe I know who it is too. You? I just had a feeling this name was going to come up. The true identity of the infamous Reaper of the Bailey is, and I think it's Lord Strongheart. I actually do think that it's Lord Strongheart. So we're gonna go with that, guys.
Take that!
The only person who could have arranged the assassin exchange and manipulate the autopsy results is the Lord Chief Justice himself, Lord Mael Strongheart. What? Lord Strongheart? Yes, it's true that 10 years ago the defendant handled the prosecution of the professor in court. But he only took over the case after his brother, Lord Clint von Zieks, had been killed. I can only assume that this is the most inappropriate joke in British judicial history. Well, Lord von Zieks?
10 years ago, I was very new to my profession, but I had a burning desire to avenge my brother's death, so I pleaded for control of the case. The investigation to that point, the supplication of the lords to allow my brother's corpse to be examined, all the evidence I was given, the autopsy reports, it all came from you. I've spent my life since then believing I was in your debt for the way you stood aside and let me handle the trial. But I see now, I was very much mistaken.
It was a hugely influential force that caused the inspector and the coroner to break the law 10 years ago. And that same force was still felt a decade later on the other side of the world by Seishiro Jigoku. Lord Strongheart, everything falls into place when we recognize that you are the Reaper of the Bailey.
The court awaits a response, my lord. This may very well go down in British judicial history, but I assure you, it is no joke. Consider this a formal accusal by the defense.
It doesn't warrant a response. A formal accusal? Don't be absurd. The defense's claims are an utter nonsense, a wild fantasy at best.
You're not going to defend yourself?
You claim there was some wrongdoing with Lord Clint von Zieks' autopsy? That's utterly untrue.
Objection!
But I heard it from Greg's own lips. He admitted to it.
And where's your evidence?
What?
Gregson's dead now, unless you were thinking of summoning a ghost to the stand.
You mean to say?
I forget how the system works in your little backwater country. But in the courts of the British Empire without evidence, there is no case. I have no intention of entertaining some wild fantasy that can't possibly be substantiated by anyone or anything.
Ah!
Order in court! Following Inspector Gregson's murder and in the light of Dr. Wilson's death as well, there's really no one left who could testify about the events of 10 years ago, is there?
So that was the real purpose of the assassin exchange.
This court has no business raking over the coals of a case that was concluded a decade ago. The accusal brought by the prosecution and the defense is categorically denied. I take it there are no objections?
Kazuma, he's more or less waited his whole life for this moment. Is there really nothing else we can do now? Is there no other avenue we can go down in pursuit of the truth about what happened all those years ago? If only there was someone who could testify about Clint von Zieg's autopsy. Ah, there is someone! Because guys, if you remember this autopsy report here, though Professor Mikutoba actually penned the report. And he was assistant to Dr. John H. Wilson, so there is someone. He's gone to extraordinary lengths to cover these tracks, even so far as dispatching an assassin all the way to Japan to ensure Dr. Wilson's silence. And Dr. Scythe won't say anything against Strongheart. But there's still one ray of hope.
Objection!
Actually, there is one person. One person who could still testify about that autopsy.
Don't be ridiculous. There's no one left.
Who, Ryunosuke? Who? Tell me! Kazuma, Please! This strike can't end. Not yet! I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for the truth. The person the defense would like to call to the stand to testify about the autopsy of Lord Clint von Zieks is Eugene Mikotoba.
Take that!
Heaven help us! Another Japanese?
An expert in forensic medicine, my lord, Professor Eugene Mikotoba. 16 years ago, he came to London with Seishiro Jigoku and Genshin Asuki as a visiting student.
And what could this testimony possibly tell us?
Professor Mikotoba was the primary assistant during the autopsy in question. He was also the person who actually penned the report.
Incorrect. The autopsy was carried out by the coroner, Dr. Wilson. The report carries his signature.
It was the primary assistant's duty to keep a written record of the coroner's work during the procedure. In actual fact, the coroner merely read over the report at the end and signed it. In other words, Professor Mikotoba witnessed the entire autopsy from start to finish. The defense demands that Professor Mikotoba be summoned as a witness as a matter of urgency. Whatever really happened in that autopsy laboratory 10 years ago is something only he can tell us.
The defense's demand is denied.
What? But Professor Mikotoba is in London at this very moment. We could summon him to the stand in minutes. No, of course he's not going to agree to it. Strongheart has no intentions of summoning anyone who knows. He's too concerned about protecting himself.
Prosecutor Asugi, let me refresh your memory as you seem to have forgotten the prosecution's stance. Only minutes ago, you accused the defendant of being the Reaper and of masterminding the assassin exchange.
I did, yes.
So present your evidence for those claims and make your case complete.
At this time, I don't have the requisite evidence, but that is exactly why we need witness testimony.
The professor case is closed. There are no clues in the distant past that will bolster your argument today. I'm afraid to say, Prosecutor Asugi, that you would appear to be possessed by the spirit of your late homicidal father. Now, as I stated earlier, this court has already reached a conclusion with respect to the matter at hand. Inspector Gregson was murdered by Japanese Supreme Court Judge Seishiro Jigoku. As for any hidden circumstances that may exist, they will be investigated in due course by the proper authorities.
Objection!
But we all know what will happen. That'll just give the mastermind of the whole venture time to cover his tracks again.
By which you mean me? Your punishment for this contemptible behavior will be decided at a later date. As for you, Prosecutor Asugi, you will be remanded following these proceedings. Willingly, I trust, since you gave your word. This futile game of revenge is over, young Master Asugi. That will be all. I hereby declare this trial to be over.
Mr. Sholmes!
This is no place for amateur detection, Mr. Sholmes. May I remind you that these proceedings are closed to the general public? You will leave the courtroom at once.
Objection!
Mr. Sholmes was instrumental in the apprehension of Seishiro Jigoku before he fled from Europe. The court should hear what he has to say.
Lord Miles Strongheart, it's imperative that you refrain from bringing this trial to an end at this stage. Is it really? And why would that be? You need only recall your own words from the opening of the trial to answer that question, if I may. We will stop at nothing to uncover the whole truth behind these disturbing findings. Surely it can't be that the shock of being accused of being the Reaper yourself has erased that from your memory, can it? The whole truth, sir, has already been uncovered. It would seem that we have a great many important members of the judiciary present here today. I put it to you, my dear fellows, should the trial end at this juncture? After all, why have you been invited to attend? To nod along to the prevarications of your superiors? Order, order in court! It seems to me that we stand before a door that leads to a new era of legal practices. A door that is ajar. Let us emerge from the shadows of the Reaper's decade-long ascendancy. For you and you alone, my dear fellows, have the power to push this door open now. The auditors in the gallery have no rights to express an opinion in court proceedings. Silence!
He's right. The judge has absolutely authority here. Yes, if he calls the trial to an end, it must end. But will that really do? I sense dark things occurring behind the scenes. Dark things indeed.
Is there a single person here present who can honestly...
What's... The trial should go on. Summon the witness. That's right. We need to clear this up before that young Japanese fellow is remanded. My lord, you showed those present that you want to go the whole truth here.
Vindicate yourself on this outlandish indication.
The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's the very foundation of British law.
A toast to my dependable colleagues in the gallery.
Well, my lord, you hear the voice of the British Justice? British Justice, I take it? I think you'll find it will be rather awkward to silence. The court will recess briefly. I have no intention of shrinking from these allegations. Bailiff, arrange for the subpoena of the witness at once. As soon as the gentleman arrives at the courthouse, we shall reconvene. A recess won't be necessary, my lord. Pardon? Mikotaba is a close friend of mine. He accompanied me today and is waiting in the antechamber as we speak. I do believe he's been enjoying a little trip down memory lane, in fact.
What? Professor Mikotaba is here in the courthouse. Mr. Sholmes, you didn't know this would happen, did you?
My dear fellow, no one is in a better position to answer that question than you should.
I wasn't just asking for the fun of it, you know?
Well, I must thank you for your assistance in this matter, Mr. Sholmes. However, you are of no further use here. Kindly leave the courtroom at once. But of course, in truth, I find myself rather busy now as a result of these developments. Mr. Naruhodo,
Yes?
I trust you have Iris's little lucky charm with you.
Absolutely. It's still in my pocket.
She sends her regards and a reminder. If you find yourself at dead end, the ears are at your disposal. Just one tug, if you please.
Oh, of course.
In that case, the trial will continue without delay. Bailiff, show the witness to the stand.
So it's Lord Strongheart. He's the Reaper of the Bailey. Where exactly is this trial going to take me, I wonder? Just how deep am I about to be plunged into the blackness of the abyss? Well, I'm ready. I'm ready to head into the heart of this maelstrom and confront whatever horrors it tries to drown me under. Alright, guys, it seems like, yeah, there is to be continued. Okay, guys. Well, it seems there is going to be a lot of things going on in the next part. So, if you want to know how things are going to unfold, you'll have to tune in for the next episode of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Resolve. See you then.